go down and try it like that.
And I'm in the-
I'm sorry, we'll start. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is. All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Mahalis,
Here.
Mr. Zayas,
Here.
Mrs. Connor.
Here.
Mr. Acom,
Here.
Mr. Sobolski.
Here.
All right, before we move to the special reports and recognitions, I would like to make a motion to table Exhibit E1B8, which is a resolution to approve job description and salary schedule for an assistant principal at the high school and a 6 through 12 grade special education coordinator. We just want to table that for time for further discussion. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions about that at this time? All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Zayas,
Yes.
Mrs. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis,
Yes.
Mr. Acom.
Yes.
All right, now moving on to special reports and recognitions. We have Exhibit A1, which is a resolution to recognize and congratulate the following students for being selected by Rotary International of Aurora as Students of the Month. And they are Elena Maitin and Aiden Abramovich. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Are there any comments or questions before we hear from the students? All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis.
Yes.
Mr. Acom,
Yes.
Mr. Zayas.
Yes.
All right, motion is approved, or resolution is approved. Mr. Abramovich, would you please introduce the students?
Thank you, Ms. Mahalis and Board. It's unique today, again, as you see, having Aiden, my son, up here being recognized, which is very unique. But it's an honor as well, because not only to be with someone like Elena, but as the staff said, that as we vote for our students, and these two, again, have those votes for our graders, boys and girls, they would not be, as some of the staff members said, they would not be send an email in to Mrs. Johansson without having David's name on it. So that's quite an honor, and I appreciate that for what he has accomplished and the staff recognizing him. To be with Elena as well, some of the staff have said that about Elena, since she makes others better learners, it takes learning further each time, no matter where she's at, what class she's in, and who she's around. Said Aiden is an individual who's ability to work with anyone, and he just loves to learn. Both of them comments from teachers said that they lead by example, and they are a model for the Harmon Middle School's moniker of do the right thing. Always putting themselves in a position to be learners and helping others. I've seen that in the classroom and also in all their work with them. It's really nice that they're recognized from all the comments from teachers as examples, learners, and ones that go around helping each other while others do the right thing. So you're going to learn more about these two individuals from their speeches. Our first up will be Elena Maitin.
you, students. Thanks for coming and for sharing those speeches with us. All right, next is Exhibit A2, which is a resolution to recognize and congratulate the following students for being selected by the American Legion as winners of the American Legion Americanism and Government Test. I'll read through the names, and then we'll do a motion in a second, and then I'll have the gentleman come up and introduce the students. Matt, is that the way this will go? Okay, in 12th grade, we have Logan Oden and Shamiso Maposa. 11th grade, we have Dimitri Wolf and Alexandra Uhas. And in 10th grade, Riley Lane and Avantika Choletti. May I have a motion, please?
Moved. Second.
We'll hear from the students. Any comments or questions? All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Sobulski?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Steve Spencer, and I'm the first vice commander of Claire K. Elephant Negotiator with the American Legion. It gives me great pleasure to be here today, both to award the certificates and the checks that we have for the students, but also to be able to, after a 3-year absence of being able to give our test, to be able to thank the board and all of the members of staff and faculty that have helped us over the years. It was very good seeing Mr. Roberto, Savage, because when they were principals at the high school, they were very cooperative with us. And just in passing, a couple of years ago, Mr. Roberto actually participated in the American Legion Buckeye Boys Day. I won't say what years, but I think it's just a symbol of the amount of cooperation that has been between the Aurora schools and our Legion post. Somebody who I would be very remiss in not mentioning is our athletic director, Paul Powers, who has just bent over backwards to help us during the basketball season when we have 50-50 raffles that helps support our scholarship fund, and he sends students to Buckeye Boys State and Buckeye Girls State. So I've got to admit, it gives me a warm fuzzy to be here tonight and to see faces, especially that distinguished gentleman in the green sweater over there, who's also a member of our Legion Post. It's just like I'm sitting here with friends. To cut this short, get on with it, because anybody here that knows me knows that I can talk for a while. The Americanism and Government Test is given each year in November. Just taking a little while for the scores to get through the system or whatever. But the test is given to that showed up, so. Without Chris doing this the last few years, we wouldn't be able to find anybody, so, once again, thank you all.
And thanks to you both for coming tonight and for sharing this and making it happen in our schools. All right, Exhibit A3 is a resolution to recognize and congratulate the Aurora High School Quiz Bowl team, and I'm excited to have them here tonight. Do I introduce them? Oh, yes, we need to vote. Can I have a motion?
Second.
All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Sobulski?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker, would you mind bringing the crew up to the podium? Thank you.
Got the shirt. Yeah, just tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I'll let them be most important. But I do want to say thank you so much for having us. I watched the video from the last meeting where Tammy said, oh, it sure would be nice to have them in to, to meet them, and so I brought them. And thank you so much, administrators, board, staff, and everybody for your support of the team, for your approval of the trip. We're really excited to go represent the nation in Atlanta for the national quiz bowl tournament. I'll let you guys tell a little more about the team and our
Hello everyone, I'm Vikas Saburi. I've been on the quiz bowl teams in middle school and 8th grade, and then since my freshman year I've been on the quiz bowl team. But I've had a great time being able to go to tournaments and compete with other schools. Notably last year we did place fifth in our state of Ohio, and we'd like to continue that success at nationals. So I'd like to thank the board for helping us get to Atlanta and participate in this tournament.
I have Katie. I've also been in quiz bowl since 8th grade. And the class is about attending tournaments, and I think this is about hosting tournaments. And at the end of the day, anyone and everyone who likes use the building and maybe help as soon as possible. And I respect, because that's how being a state rep is. And yeah, it's been a great experience at hosting tournaments as well as the team because we learn like organizational skills and also being in scoring, which just helps us understand how much work goes into it. I also appreciate it.
I'm Radish, and I'm also been in principal since 8th grade and all 4 years of high school. I really enjoy working with the team and Ms. Walker, just get back around the board going on in Atlanta. And like Todd said, we did get OSU State's last year, and OSU is one of my favorite over on 18 team. I just love the whole that really confident
Hello, my name is Bella Shore, and I joined the quiz bowl team last year, so I'm not as experienced as some of the others. But I definitely really enjoy quiz bowl, and it helps me utilize a lot of my knowledge that I can utilize in many other places. We went to many tournaments in person, but we also went to many online, especially last year. But one notable online tournament we got this year was one against a lot of the teams in China. So it's really interesting to have like a tournaments outside of the country, and our A team at least won. We played That's a very great experience, and yeah, it's really great.
I'm Preston Buchan. I've been in quiz bowl since 6th grade. I'm a freshman now. One of my favorite parts about quiz bowl is the tournaments, getting to go to other schools and learn. And I think it's a really great challenge to see how much I've grown
Walker, I have a question. Do the questions during the tournament, do they pertain just to the high school curriculum, or do they also pertain to current events and sports and things?
So it's actually, it's a little bit of everything. I would say that going to school in Aurora has made being like better at physical easier, because a lot of what we teach in class actually comes out in physical. But there is like sports and pop culture, and there is current events, but current events I feel like it comes about throughout anyway. So that actually helps us a lot.
Great.
Otherwise it's a mix. There's history,
Yeah.
literature, music, and math, and sports, fine arts, all sorts of things. So a great team has made a lot of different interests and passions and things that are studying for them to do.
Great. Thank you so much, students, for coming tonight. And now we'll have a couple minutes of intermission so you all can leave, go home and study, do what you have to do. All right, we have no public comments tonight, so we will move on to the approval of minutes from the February 27th regular meeting. May I have a motion for approval?
Move.
Did you get a second? Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Are there any comments or edits or additions, anything to those minutes? All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Ozias?
Yes.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Ed?
Yes.
All right, minutes are approved as written. And next we'll go to the superintendent and assistant superintendent report.
Thank you, Mrs. Mihalis. So last week, Maria Goodman, Mike Hayes, Paul Milsitich, and I traveled down to Columbus to the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission Envisioning Workshop. The goal of the workshop was to, well, first of all, it was recommended by the architects, and the idea was to be sure that the philosophical vision and pedagogical practices that we practice are aligned with our potential new construction. The idea of not building a building that we're not going to use properly. And so we returned with a little bit of reassurance and lots of reinforcement that we are on the right track, emphasizing our strategic vision as the guiding force for all that we do, including designing the layout for our potential construction. We're planning on meeting with TDA again, actually on Wednesday, but I wanted to be first to share the updated timeline. And so it's that big piece of paper in front of you that I want to just reference just real quickly. What we're planning on doing is, as things get planned more and more, we'll start to kind of fill this timeline in. So you can see some of the things. For example, on February 22nd, the folks from TDA actually visited each of our buildings and just got a feel for the culture and just kind of took notes and got a chance to kind of see what was going on in each of our buildings. And a little later on in March, Sal actually worked with each of our head custodians to show all the nooks and crannies of our buildings so they could be able to develop a master plan to include some potential recommendation for renovations and things like that. And our goal, if you'll notice, in April and May, is to have our community meetings probably towards the end of April, early May, and then be able to come to the board meeting in May with a recommendation on whether we're looking at a high school or a new elementary based on feedback from the community. And so we'll have that recommendation hopefully with there. And then you can kind of see the timeline down the rest of the way. The one thing I did want to point out is that when we developed this, before we brought in TDA, we really didn't know where that timeline would fall in terms of construction and everything and opening. And so they do have the construction a little bit in terms of opening, completing a little bit longer than what we had anticipated, about a year longer. So we're looking at the fall of 2027 if we were to be able to pass a bond in the fall of 2024. That'd be the earliest. It could be a little longer depending on if it's like a bigger building like the high school, something like that. So this timeline, we're actually hoping to, as it continues to be updated, we're hoping to get on the website, which is the second part, what I'd like to show. If you were to go to our website, and I just took little screenshots here so you can kind of see, it's underlined where it says the ACSD Facility Master Planning Project. That's a link that is new to the website that thanks to Stacy Deanna for getting this up and running. And it will take you to a Google site, which will basically be another website all about this project and some of the latest information. So not only can our parents access this, but our community as a whole when they go to the website. So if you were to click on there, you'd see it would take you to this particular website here. And if you were to sneak down a little bit lower on there, they talk a little bit about, why do we have this master planning project in place? And basing on the feedback we have, a growing population, the idea that our buildings are getting older, and, we're doing a nice job keeping them going, but Craddock is over 100 years old, so that was, one of the big pieces there. If you go back and you were to hover over where it says news and updates, there's a little drop down that'll show you little updates that are sent out. So if you missed, the ACSD update that mentioned the beginning of some of this research, you can go back and view that video. Or Stacy again sent and developed your school's newsletters. Anything in relation to construction would be able to fall under that news and updates section from there. And then if you, the next one over where it says, how did we get here? If you were to click on that, it would take you to a number of different pieces of information, and I scrolled down and took just a quick screenshot of the feedback. When we first started this, we had over 1,000 families that did talk about the need to look in the next 5 years at a new construction, and you can kind of see the breakdown from there. So, the goal of the site is to not only share what was happening concerning potential construction with the community, but to kind of keep the community informed in the latest developments so that we can, be transparent and therefore be, trusted by the community. So we're hoping to also get this little timeline as one of the links as this develops more and more, so that the community will be able to kind of keep track from there. Any questions as to where we're at so far with our development?
Just one. Will TDA be able to assist with traffic studies when you look at this master site plan and where a location might be to develop maybe improved traffic on campus and around it?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, they noticed that our high school was a little bit congested in the beginning, and they did come over and look at Layton as well, same thing. So that will be part of that. We'll have, depending on what building and where it goes, we'll be able to perhaps be able to come up with a new pattern, a traffic pattern. And the C actually created a study as well, and so we're waiting to hear back from them based on our current traffic pattern. So that'd be a good comparison as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Sure.
Did I understand you to say you're going to try to put this on the website?
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be good. This is helpful.
We mentioned that to them last time, and they're going to try to see if it would be easy to do that. And then every time it gets updated, it'll be updated on the website.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Paul.
Okay, as you saw in the report, I'm going to just take a few minutes to give a summary about how we used the time on our last two professional development days on February 17th and March 6th. As I mentioned, anytime we take days where we dedicate the time to professional learning, we want to make sure that we're utilizing that time really effectively and for what our staff needs, which obviously varies. Sometimes it's large groups, sometimes small groups of staff, building depends on the role. We really try to differentiate. And with this one, there were sort of, buckets or groupings of trainings that we needed to do between those two different days. And so I did just throw some snippets up there of the schedule and some of the screenshots. One of the things I did want to mention tonight that I didn't necessarily talk about in the report, though, is that we did, one of the things that we did just in video format was actually brief our staff on the transition from our current grade book system to the fact that we will have to switch next year to progress book grade. So that's something that is going to be required, and so we did want to give them a brief update, but didn't want to take too much time. So that occurred at 8 to 8:15. There was a video that I watch. Then there was work sort of going on in every location across the district, including this building, both days. So the first one you can see up there, you can see the high school department schedule, the basics of it. Obviously, there's a lot more details. But Mike Hayes and his staff, he actually had a crew of teachers running a great session in the morning. They started out with a mindfulness session, and they really dove into UDL, or Universal Design for Learning, which is probably a whole presentation unto itself. But essentially, staff was learning about the principles of UDL and how to redesign lessons and learning units with more options for students in terms of some of the content they might learn, or potentially some of what they produce. So it's really just redesigning
Corey Hornicky from the Summit County ESE and me, who kind of did a little tour. First we went to Harmon, then we went to Layton. And what their focus was there was a component of the new teacher evaluation system called HQSD, High Quality Student Data. And there have been some just questions or areas that we wanted to drill down into. And so Corey collaborated on this, and he did most of the presenting. But it was really just on ways in which we could use particular types of data to be really diagnostic and strategic component in informing instruction on how we go about doing that. So a really good session. We had about an hour and 15 minutes with both the Harmon staff and the Layton staff. Very engaged, asked a lot of good questions. So that was the morning for those buildings, and then lunch in the afternoon. I know you're familiar with our freshman learning communities, so a lot of teacher teams and grade level teams did tackle curriculum projects they don't always have time for on a weekly basis. So that was Harmon High School. At the same time, and this is actually one of the I guess the things that precipitated the need for the extra day. In this building, Jen Miller, and many thanks to her, facilitated the first part of our K-3 dyslexia training. The first day, and actually we almost finished that second day. I'll give you more of an update on that briefly. But there was a small break, but that was packed. I mean, we were really moving to get through all that prior training that I told you about. So it's really sort of videos, learning checks, brief collaborative activities, and you have to make it through module after module after module. So it was intense, but I was super proud of Jen and the group just for the focus and being efficient at the time. So that was what they were doing the entire time. Meanwhile, preschool was working on some PBS. It's a required Tier 1 refresher. And then Layton, you saw the high quality student data session. They also had some other grade level teams and their PLCs. So that was mostly sort of rounds out February 17th. I did want to mention Victor Torres and a number of our staff members facilitated some training for our paraeducators for their continuing education. So they had public school works training, teacher online modules, and number of other training videos. So very productive day for that as well. And then March 6th, just to sort of round this all out, I kind of try to give you a brief overview of what happened at all different locations. Ms. Goodman and her staff used that time really well. They were CPR training and screening typical peers, meeting families, which are all things that they need to do. And it's tough to find the time. K-3 almost completed required dyslexia training. Like I said, I'm really proud of their focus. There are districts that are sometimes taking 3 and 4 days to get this done. And it could probably take more than that, to be honest with you. It is that dense in terms of what, the training that teachers need. But we were able to almost finish, and our staff right now is currently, they're working away in some of their professional learning communities and some of their time they have during the day. So K is done, 1 and 2 are about done, 3rds are going to finish up this week. So really, this week we're going to be almost done with that requirement. So that is excellent. And then you can see Layton Harmon. There were PLCs those days as well, but a lot of vertical and transition meetings. So I think you're familiar with these terms. The vertical just meaning like 4th meeting with 5th or 6th, 7th, and 8th. They were able to align curriculum. And then transition meetings, we were actually having transition meetings from 5th to 6th, and some of those meetings, even some of the 8th to 9th, in terms of certain students with special needs and case loads, and sort of talking about that transition from this year to next year. So really good meetings. PBIS, MTSS at the middle school, and then a continuation of UBL high school. In terms of the staff almost had homework. Mr. Hayes gave the staff that were going on the homework to work with their teams to try to brainstorm and come up with some shifts or some workflow shifts that they were actually incorporating with students, which they then actually worked on for the last half year, just to make sure it was followed through in that way. So, just a ton of outstanding work happened across the district. I want to thank, obviously, all of the folks that facilitated that, because there were a lot of different administrators and teachers and staff members involved. And then, obviously, thank you to the board. We appreciate your support. we're doing that time. It is extremely valuable, and we can't find those blocks of time regularly, so when we do have them, we are thankful for that support, and the fact that you're, giving us the time to get to training professional development, at least, a few times throughout the year, so. With that, I'll, open up to see if there's any questions, before we move on.
Do you give an idea of the percentage of students diagnosed with dyslexia, grades K through 3, our students?
Yeah, so, no, I don't offhand. And it's hard because sometimes, and this is part of the training with this, there are characteristics or traits that the students exhibit that could potentially be associated with dyslexia, but it may not be. So that's part of what we're working through, are using difference readers. Do they just need more time or intense interventions with certain building blocks of reading, and then it'll help the student with whatever weaknesses they have in reading. But over time, obviously, if that's not the case, and with more, I guess, attention and training, the goal of this in Ohio and all these other states that are doing this is that students who do have dyslexia or these difficulty with reading, that will be caught earlier, and the intervention will be able to be in place to help them. So, but we don't, it's a very small number.
Anything else?
Uh,
Okay,
just-
one more, just quick. Oh, do you have one? No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just wanted to comment, it's a tremendous amount of learning that happened. That's very impressive. I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about what supports are in place. How do you guys support teachers to ensure that what they're learning gets implemented in the classroom?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it kind of goes back to, it kind of goes back to what I mentioned with what Mike Hayes was doing up at UDL, because we can't just do 2 days of training and just all of a sudden it's done. We've actually been doing ongoing training in professional development and research and learning since last year with science of reading and dyslexia, which Jen Miller and I presented on. But then it really is just ongoing work with principals and MTSS coordinators and teachers, professional learning communities, trying to figure out which adjustments need to be made with our assessments, which we've been doing that. Once we have that information, what interventions are needed in which situations, and so we do case studies and try to, do our own sort of internal research based on, the external research. So I'd say that's the best answer I can give, is it's ongoing, and it's embedded, and it's utilizing research and best practices, but also being responsive to our students. Because sometimes when states come up with these blank policies that everybody needs this, and this K through 3, yes and no. Yes, that's a good blanket policy, but you have to take into account your learners, your population, your district. So we have to be responsive to our rural learners and make those adjustments.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to reemphasize, the ongoing embedded is within the PLCs. So those are done weekly, and then there'll be other times here and there that we might pull and develop the curriculum. Yeah, and things like that, but mostly PLCs, that's the power of them.
Thank you.
And then just real briefly, you mentioned progress book. Can you remind us or tell us?
Yeah.
Briefly or no? If it's
Yes,
not.
no problem. So we have had Pinnacle, which is our online grade book system, that the teachers, record grades and then parents would access them, that we use essentially 3 through 12. Pinnacle is an old sort of outdated version. They're no longer going to support that anymore through our consortium, which part. And so essentially, because we were the last one in the consortium on that, they basically said, you guys need to move on to something different. And so that is going to be progress book. So that is going to require some training over time, so just to adjust to a new grade book system. It'll operate essentially the same way, it's just different software.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. Mr. Bollison, thank you for those reports.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahalis. This evening, I have 3 resolutions for your consideration, and we'll start with the financial report for the month of February. And in February, our revenues exceeded expenditures by about $7.2 million, increasing our general fund cash balance to about $15.7 million, through 8 months of the fiscal year. Revenues were about 0.6% less than projected, and expenditures about 0.2% greater, so pretty much what we had anticipated. Big thing on the revenue side, we got 4 tax advances from the Portage County Auditor, and those totaled for the general fund $9.8 million. A little less than what we received at this time last year, but again, advances kind of coincide with how the tax payments are coming in from the community. So sometime in March or in April, we will get our final settlement from the Portage County Auditor. We'll know, pretty much where we stand revenue-wise for the fiscal year. Expenditures, again, are currently pretty much all within normal variances for the year. Thus far, right now, our revenues are about $5,800 higher than projected, and expenditures about $58,000 greater. So overall, we have an unfavorable variance of about $53,000 8 months into the fiscal year. So that's on a $40 million budget. So that's relatively close to what we'd be anticipating at this time of the year. And that's Exhibit D1.
All right, Exhibit D1, a resolution to approve financial statements and reports. May I have a motion for approval?
Moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Volleson? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Acom?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Cebulski?
Yes.
All right, resolution is approved.
Next, I have D2, which are some transfers that we're making. So similar to last month, we were transferring from 2 different funds into the general fund and then going back out to 2 other funds. So we're moving $1,200 from an anonymous donation to the NHS fund at the high school for scholarships. And then we're also moving, O22 fund was created several years ago by the state auditor's office for state tournaments. So we have a playoff football game or basketball game. All the monies would go into O22 and then would be, paid back out to cover the cost of whether it be officials, so on and so forth. Well, since the state has now gone to the online ticketing, they're saying you don't need to use the O22 fund anymore. So the remaining dollars on there, we're just transferring into the athletic fund, the 300 fund. So that's essentially what the movement of these dollars are.
Okay. Exhibit D2, a resolution to approve appropriation amendments. May I have a motion?
Move.
Chair seconds. Any comments or questions? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Cebulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Acom?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
And then finally, D3 is amending the permanent appropriation resolution for the year. Majority of these are occurring in our 500 or federal grant programs. A big part is in our ESSER funds. We have multiple ESSER funds that we're dealing with, from ESSER 2 to ARP ESSER, which is ESSER 3, to ESSER 2 State Activity Supplement Fund, and then to ARP ESSER 3 State Activity Supplement Fund. All these funds are to be expended by the end of next fiscal year. So we could this gives us the ability to start to encumber some of the monies on these different funds. There's a couple of different like building type project funds left to do, such as chiller replacement, air handlers, and also dust collector at Harmon. So some of these are larger dollar items, which will obviously have to be bid out as these are federal dollars. Also, you'll see $250,000. That is the school security grant, another federal program. We have received those dollars, so this enables us to expend those dollars once it is determined the different items that we may be purchasing through the security grant.
Okay. Exhibit D3, resolution to approve amended 22-23 permanent appropriations. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Acom?
Yes.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
Mr. Cebulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
That concludes my
Yeah, thank you for that report. All right, moving on to new business. We have Exhibit E1A, which is a resolution to accept gifts and contributions. We have Mr. and Mrs. Balbeck donating $500 to the high school athletic department for baseball. Fald's Physical Therapy, $1,500 to the athletic department for baseball. My Orthos donated $500 for girls soccer, and Munn Chiropractic donated $500 for baseball. May I have a motion for approval?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Other than thank you for the generous donations. Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
All right, and then we have 7 personnel issues before us, so we'll take them together if that's okay. I'll read through them. Exhibit E1B1 is a resolution to accept resignations and retirements. We have 3 employees on that list. Exhibit E1B2 is a resolution to award administrator contracts, 5 of them. Exhibit E1B3 is a resolution to approve a job description and salary schedule for IT support analyst. Exhibit E1B4 is a resolution to employ support staff substitutes for this current school year. Exhibit E1B5 is a resolution to award a supplemental and extended time contracts to district personnel. Exhibit E1B6 is a resolution to approve the introductory appointment of support staff. And Exhibit E1B7 is a resolution to award a supplemental activity contract to non-district personnel. May I have a motion for approval?
Moved.
Chair seconds. Any comments or questions? All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
All right, all resolutions are approved. Exhibit E1C is a resolution to approve overnight trips. We have 5 sports trips before us. Gymnastics, wrestling, baseball, softball, and tennis. May I have a motion for approval?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Those trips. All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
All right, resolution is approved. And Exhibit E1D is a resolution requesting assistance from the OSBA Legal Assistance Fund. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Chair seconds. Are there any comments or questions about that? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
All right, we have no discussion items before us. Are there any board items? All right, and I'll ask for a motion for adjournment, please.
Second.
All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mr. Zayas?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes. All right, meeting is adjourned.